Hello, everyone. Everyone out there. Welcome to Purple Squirrel Studios here in Cincinnati, Ohio, or in the universe, wherever I am, you happen to be. This is Riffing with Ryan. I am, surprise, Ryan Erickson. And I am here with I would call him a dear friend. He's a dear person, a fantastically wonderful, surprising person. I will say a little bit about how we met when I came back into the world after my cancer journey in 2022. We just kind of wandered into each other randomly, and I had this vibe about him. By the way, Frankie Bianchi, it was in the background in the penalty box. Um, I had this great feeling about Frankie, and we connected. We talked about coffee, I think, and food, and just in general, I got this great feel about him, and I'm so happy to know him and to be able to host him here today. And so, without further ado, Frankie, hello.
Hi, hello. Whoa, what an entrance.
Whoa.
Special effects.
Yeah, special effects. You go down, go up, and all this kind of jazz. So now that you're here, what would you, in a couple words, what would you like people to know about you as they enter this space whenever they happen to do so?
So thank you for giving me the toughest challenge of all, me summarizing, being constrained in just a couple of words. I don't need to tell them I'm Italian. I may want to tell them that I'm currently in Ireland, as my accent may give away, but I don't have an accent. What else? I've changed career a few times. I'm changing career now. I'm trying to. And that's connected to the topic that we want to discuss today. And I keep being impressed by our chats. You've grown a lot in your setup and in your skills as a host and as a producer. And I'm really curious to see how you bring those to life today, because every time we have a conversation, I have a breakthrough. So I'm looking forward to, I have high expectations today for our chat.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, and it's the first time that I have the potential to have a breakthrough in front of a live audience. So, I'm very intrigued by this chat. I'm not sure if this satisfies the curiosity of the listeners.
You've satisfied my curiosity. You've answered the question in whatever way you've chosen to answer it, and which is beautiful and wonderful. And who knows, we may talk about. Who knows what we'll talk about? I think one thing that you've had behind your head was an intention about who are we talking about? Why are these folks, these youngers, the Gen Zs, and Gen Zen. That's the first time I've heard that term. I mean, Zoomers, Gen Z, iGen was one. So first off, I noticed that. Why Zen? What was it about Gen Zen that brought that word in there before we go too far?
I'm really glad you asked. It's the first time that I make this word public. It's the word that me and the rest of the team have chosen for the name of our team. It's a suggestion from a friend, former colleague, Marco. Hi, Marco, in case you're watching this. It's just a name that we decided to use for our initiatives to introduce ourselves to the world. And we love the name because it summarizes our mission. There's a group of 4 of us for now, 2 Zoomers, 2 Gen Z, 1 Millennial, and 1 Gen X. So it's a pretty diverse team in that regard, less diverse in other regards. I mean, 3 are Italians. It just happened to work that way. And we all agree that there's a big disconnect across generation, and there's a bigger gap. It's a regular thing. It's a routinary element that comes up in history. But we think that the current gap between Gen Z and the older generation is bigger, and it's more worrying. In these times where we need more energy, more enthusiasm, having the new generation coming in being so disconnected and so distant and so not understood by the current generation of the power to make them work, that's alarming, in my opinion. especially with an aging workforce and all that comes with it. So we started thinking, how can we support young generations? But then the thought evolved, saying like it's not just about supporting young generation. They don't necessarily need to be handhold. They don't need to be healed. They don't need to be fixed. Some people my age made some comments like, "Oh, Gen Z is broken," but they are not. And if they are, it's our fault for raising them that way. So maybe what we need is to restore the balance and the connections between the different generations who speak different languages. I don't believe anyone is ill-intended, but there's a lot of miscommunication and misunderstanding. Hi, Dan.
Yes, Dan Moody is here, and who has been a guest before in our domain here with a large group. That rather negative and pokey, no such thing kind of conversation. We're welcome to Dan. For those of also, I said, Frankie, I said I was going to talk about something and just kind of set the stage for how people would interact. And of course, I didn't do it, which is natural to say something and not do it. For me, if you out there are viewing on LinkedIn and would like to have us type back and forth to you, hop on over to YouTube, because that's easier for us. Here we can see your comments, I can pop them up, but it's really kind of a pain in the to be able to go back and forth. And Maria Falsetti, sounds like an Italian name, possibly. Okay. So here you go. This is exactly what you kind of went into right there. This prejudicial kind of stance that often happens. I would imagine. Maybe it's stated, maybe it's not. You mentioned that okay, the young folks, they don't need to be fixed, and they are beautiful and wonderful as they are, as we believe we are. In your practice, right? So this issue came to you very deeply in your heart. What have you seen of that prejudice? How are folks that you've observed interacting with these beautiful, wonderful youngsters? What have you seen?
There's something that I've experienced in an event where I was, so to say, a guest, as in I invited myself, even if it was not directed to me, but I managed to sneak in. That's probably a better word. And it was about finding work, tips about finding work. And I remember at the end of the great presentation that the person did, and I want to keep not mention the person because otherwise that could allow to identify the other people I want to talk about now. I want to keep it anonymous and safe. But at the end of the presentation, great presentation, there was a moment of Q&A, and I don't know, 10, 12 people, about a dozen people stood up, asked questions. Two of them around my age, so middle age, second part of 40s probably, stood up, and they made a very negative, aggressive content, in my opinion, versus the young generation. Some of them were present, so there were different age demographic. Some people were middle age, looking for a job, and some people were just straight out of college. They couldn't care the less. They just stood up and established their supremacy because they have more experience. And so how dare these young people apply to the same job that they do and still in the work? And I'm like, are you serious? These people could be your children.
Stealing the work? That was...
Yes.
Wow. That's just... Did you have a chance to go? Was that kind of comment? I mean, that's really kind of. Was there a chance to go deeper into that and figure out what do you mean stealing? What are you really talking about? How deep did you feel you could go with that?
I didn't feel it was my place to stand up and ask more. There were experienced facilitator in the room. I didn't feel it was the right moment even to stand up to defend the other generation, but that made me think a lot. It was at the beginning of my journey. I realized this is a cause I care about not too long ago. I've been mentoring young people for a long time, but there's always been something that I happen to do as part of my job or as part of my friendship with someone. And now I want to make it my full focus. And but I had this breakthrough 3-4 months ago, and the event was at week 2 or 3 of my breakthrough. So I was myself not sure about the role that I should have adopted, I should have had. So I didn't ask, I didn't stand up. I started keeping an eye open though on the topic. I started realizing that there is a reverse ageism. You can read a lot about ageism online, saying, "Oh yeah, people when they hit their 50s or even younger, depending on the industry, could be someone in their 30s, could be already old." And that could be appropriate in sport when you are not performing as you could when you are 15 or 20. But it doesn't apply to most of the jobs out there. So we talk about ageism, thinking, oh, when you're senior, you're too experienced, or you're not flexible, or what companies really mean is you're either too expensive, or I cannot bend you to my will so easily. That's really what they think about, or I cannot exploit you. It's a thing. I don't want to ignore it. I want to dismiss it. But now I think we are experiencing the opposite. And if you start reading articles, there's a tsunami of articles sharing how managers are not comfortable hiring Gen Z because they are unreliable, and there's a long list of things. I published one survey, the results of one survey a couple of days ago on my LinkedIn. If someone is curious to go and check one of the examples. Yeah, that's mostly
it. Wow, that reverse ageism, and that's talking about. I mean, feels worse now. Feels worse to us, as I think you may be a decade or so younger than me, possibly. I think maybe I don't know. Let's say either way, I'm not gonna age discriminate against you here. We'll just be there. But we were the slacker. Our thing was, oh, you're slackers, right? The boomers, whatever, 20 years or so elder from us would criticize us for not having a work ethic, and that same thing in our early 20s. And how weird it is to think that the slackers are now, as having risen to positions of authority in organizations, now flip that whole, oh, you forgot that you were the slacker. You forgot that. And just because the media environment is different, so many things are different, as different to us as our environment was different to our parents in the workforce and our elder siblings in the workforce, and the pejoratives, the criticism of, I think that, we're the slackers and they're the snowflakes, and that they lack resilience and robustness, and they just need to buckle up. We were the latchkey kids, and our parents left us at home, and all this kind of stuff. This trauma that we experienced as Gen X, and many of us did, and to be unwilling to show that compassion to, again, as you mentioned early on, these young folk are our children. My kid's 28, and they're in that zone too. And how the topic here about we've come into Agile software development. This happened when we were coming in, and this practice of Agile coaching came in, and the topic here is how might a skill or practice that you've learned in Agile coaching, again, help bridge that gap and to create this compassion. What would be a tool, maybe the first tool and experience you had in trying to bridge that gap with agile coaching, if you wouldn't mind sharing.
Absolutely. And I think there's many things. There's the skill that we develop as mentoring, so you can help someone one-to-one. There are the principles that we embrace, choosing to work in an agile way. And a big one, which is usually the most forgotten one, in my opinion, is the sustainable pace. And we see even just having a document that in theory people working in agile way should subscribe to, that has a line that says you should be able to work with an indefinite pace, you, your customers, and all the people connected. Being able to bring in that up, that's a great thing. But those are values that are being written by someone else, a group that we may or may not recognize with, we may be aware of or not. I think something like a team canvas, a moment where you ask to the team to slow down and decide, how do you want to work? Not how your company makes you work, not how your team lead, which is someone who has a responsibility, is accountable for certain results, and has their own idea, whatever those ideas are, will impose on you. How do you collectively need to work? How often do you want to be? How often do you want or do you need to be in the office? What are your productive work hours? What are the values? What are the things that are important for you? How do you want to communicate?
And how do you want people to communicate with you? How do you want, how?
Sorry, that felt very much with me. I often don't know. I want different situations and different people. I look for different rules, if you want me to call them, or conventions or agreements with different people in different moments. And it's only when we have this conversation that I can discover it. And I imagine it's the same for many other people. And then you need to try, and then you need to revisit. And that's the only, or not the only, it's a first step to start to know, to accept, tangibly accept, and evidence that there's diversity in the group, and accept that different people will have different needs.
Oh, the diversity of need. I think that's an interesting one to say, because it's and again, maybe I'll cast aspersions on the Gen X and older, that this idea of diversity, equity, inclusion, inclusiveness, it's surprising the level of attention that has come recently. That started the idea of inclusiveness and was happening in the 90s. And I mean, really been happening a long time. And the idea of what does inclusiveness mean, and what kind of diversity is that diversity that we're talking about as we are in a small team together, and that there's that one level of diversity that is legislated in many ways, which I don't like to be legislated and controlled by it, and there's compliance with it, and there are the cultural diversities and diversities of capability. And then what we're talking about here is, I think, this deeper level, right? What are the diversities of experience? What are the diversities of traumas? What are the diversities of worldview, of how might you view the world? What do you fear? What are your fears, and how are those playing in how you do the work? And I think that often gets lost, because in the fear of, I'm not complying with the diversity guidelines, and I'm going to get exited, I'm going to get punished and thrown away, and that can be distracting, and you certainly want to be aware of it. It's so important to be aware of that, because you don't want to be exited for a reason like that. But I think this idea, what you're talking about, is, okay, I'm gonna show you some grace, and I'm not gonna judge you, my young friend, and accept your differences, right? And I think that's the challenge when this fear of punishment coming, we who aren't so delicate in our language and have not and learned not to be that, um, is it, it's tough. It's tough. And so you mentioned again that the kind of approaches that you would use uh, to engage your Zoomers and Zens and Zeds. How have you? What's another way that you've experienced someone, say, my generation, um, to uh, to have them open up and be able to show that grace to youngsters? What are your thoughts on that? How would you approach a gray beard, like I don't have a beard, like me when it comes in that?
Do you mean in an individual conversation or in a group setting?
Well, either way, what if you as a coach, right? So your role as a coach has the idea that you're an observer. When you observe a pattern of, I don't think there's that's I don't think they're seeing each other. I don't think there's understanding there. So you can approach that as am I going to intervene as a coach in a group way to be this gentle, maybe a nudge towards understanding, or is this super serious that you want to take it, have an individual conversation? So and you don't have to bring something specific, but what would be a pattern that you might explore as a skill?
I am not a conventional coach. So I wouldn't probably wear my coaching hat in this case. In a group setting, first of all, I would try to, if I observe, if I notice, or even if I just sense the risk, and very often, just by looking at the composition of the team, you can already think, there is a risk here. Just change the session, create a facilitation plan, and you can create it on the fly. It doesn't have to be something that you've written, carved on a piece of wood or on stone. You can decide on the fly, say, there's a dominant voice. Let's break the group down in subgroups. And the moment there's a dynamic, so when you have people talking one-to-one, or maybe in triads, in trios, you're almost forced to talk. And also you may feel more comfortable by just observing what happens. But even without observing, if you start shuffling these groups, create excuses, opportunities for this group to change, so that a good dynamic doesn't reinforce you. You create a mini silos, a mini club that disrupts the unity of the group. But also, if someone has a confrontation with someone else, ideally a junior person with someone with more experience, they only need to suffer that for a very short period, and then they are released. If I know that there's someone who can be toxic or too dominating, I'm probably going to try to find a way to be the one person who talks to them. Or I may talk to them beforehand to say, why don't you help me? And I can come up with an excuse of the task. And if someone is too ingrained in their approach, either blind or too stubborn in their approach, this is where I take my coaching hat, I put it aside, and I am not shy to enter a confrontation, which I believe is something that we miss in the workplace. People speaking up, people speaking truth to power, being courageous, and sometimes doing it on the side, and sometimes doing it in front of everyone. I may have undermined my career a few times, but I stood up in front of CEOs in town halls to say, this is just a big pile of lies.
Well, I love that. That whole standing up to power is really, I applaud that and I appreciate that. And I think you hit that to what I imagine is that way of being a role model, right? And saying that maybe a Zed, a Zoomer, may not have had that experience of like for us or for me that it was celebrated to be a fight the power person and a punk, to talk back and to rebel. And my sense is, and I really want to know what you feel about that. My sense is that the media and messaging and the world that our children have grown up into has not necessarily amplified that kind of stand-up courage that we've come to appreciate and admire. And I think it's really, if say a young person looks at you as a coach who's compassionate and who they respect you and they like you and they know you, and they also see that you have the self-confidence and the courage to say, this is BS here in town hall, and just to stand up and be vulnerable, and that's okay. And I think that's admirable, and I think that's a great way to open the space and to invite our, again, the Zeds and Zoomers into that discussion, or into that behavior. So
there's something I think you're right. They've not been exposed to this type of role modeling. They've not grown up in that way, and there's probably a lot of which is almost everything. There's a strength, there are pros and cons. It's a strength and a weakness. They grew up more being part of a group or a collective conscience, if you want. And so in that standing out, you need to do it in a way that is safer for the group, which is socially safe, which is something that we didn't have to worry about. Our parents didn't have to worry about anything. If they changed city, no one knew them. They could have done almost anything. For them, for people of the age of our children could be or are, everything they do is documented. It's not forgotten. So they need to be careful about anything they do and anything they say, everything they do, anyone they see. What I learned, though, which is something I want to learn from them, is that they are much, much better. Well, it's a generalization, it's a stereotype, and there's always the risk to be, it's never a good thing to do. But generally speaking, I've been impressed by the amount of Gen Z people who have been very, very good in setting firmly boundaries in a very respectful way. So you can stand up and be courageous in different ways just by saying, no, I don't feel comfortable doing this because my workload is too big. In one case, literally yesterday, I had one person tell me, because I don't understand what's in it for me. Beautiful. Thank you for being so open and transparent. Now I know I could go back. Immediately, I read that, I said, oh, damn, I forgot. I was so self-focused on myself, so self-centered, so excited about my ideas that I only push for the side that was interesting for me. I asked for help to someone less than half my age, and I didn't put anything on the table for them. How silly, how naive, how stupid of me. I should have thought about that. Thank you for letting me know. Let me correct that instantaneously.
And that's a show of respect, and I think that's so important. And that's you're as, again, aging and in the workplace, the sense of privilege and authority that, oh, I am here. I have this great idea. Let's do it. You want to do this, that, and the other, and that, and to be faced with, why? I don't understand. And the response can be, well, I don't care. I don't care if you understand or not. You're going to do this because I tell you to do this because I'm your boss, and it that's and to have someone say no, and not be punished for it. I think that's a wonderful strength. And that gets me to the next question I want to talk to you. I'm glad that you brought it in. Is that, how do you perceive the young ones as stronger? What strengths have you seen, in addition to what you're talking about, that
Mhm.
really bring that wonderful music into our workplace?
I think that there are certain things that are just typical of the age, and they've been a constant throughout humanity or human history, and some things that are a little bit more specific of this new generation. And I'm curious to learn more about the next ones. So the alphas and betas, or the A's and B's, and then the C's, and let's see how long I live.
The deltas.
I think it. Second, sorry.
Of the alphas, the betas, the gammas, the deltas, all the way to the omegas.
I'm happy to watch all of them. I'll be immortal by the time. AI promised that. I think generally young people have more energy. It's just part of our biology. They can be more fearful, but at the same time, they also are more inclined to take risks. It's easier for someone who has less connections, more life ahead, has failed less, to look at something and say, oh, I know this is going to fail. So you go in with a fresh mind, not knowing that that thing obviously is going to fail, and that helps you succeed. Because you don't have this huge limiting belief, you've always failed, you've seen this organization failing again and again, this team, this group, this organization could be your dance club, doesn't have to be a big corporation. You just try. You give it a try, you give it a shot, and maybe this time the conditions are different. And maybe that's the one time where just adding a little bit of faith and the energy and the enthusiasm, you can make it work. And this is something that you can't instill by workshops. You cannot buy. There's no ping pong table that buys it. There's no hiring a motivational speaker that can help a little bit for 2 days or a week or two. There's no trip that you can do your offsite somewhere across the globe that can do that. Young people have them inside of them just because of who they are and the short history they've had in the world of work. I think this is universal. Every new hire, every new graduate that gets hired, if they're going to university, or anyone of that typical age demographic that enter the workforce, brings in this naturally. On top of that, the new generations, I love, they embody one of the principles I mentioned before, the one about sustainability. From multiple interviews, I was reading one about the University of Maynooth, which is in the center of Ireland. It's a small one, but it's an interesting one for us, and it's close to where I live, or reasonably close. So it was interesting for me. Regardless, they interviewed about 400 people, and the main thing that came up for all of them, graduate-aged people, they all want to work, even if they said that they would all like to work, even if they had enough money not to have to work, which I found quite astonishing compared to the complaint that other people want. But the second thing that came up, what's more important for you at work, is to be able to have a good balance of family, personal time, and work.
Oh, the elusive work-life balance that we've been talking about. Go ahead.
Yeah, and it's elusive because we don't believe it. We see it. Most of our generation have been given the dream of work-life balance. We call it a dream. We've never experienced it. We've been trained for our lives to be told to do what we are told and to power through whatever we need to do, because we are rewarded if we work a lot. If we kill ourselves into achieving a goal, new people have a different, luckily for them, and maybe we've done something right, we gave the space for certain philosophies and certain role models to gain relevance. But they start from a place where we've also given them the space to have a comfortable life, but they've experienced what it is to have a balance. They don't want to give up on the good things that they have in life. They've had a childhood where they didn't have to work to eat, like my parents had to do. So they can say, there is a better life than just working 12, 14 hours per day.
Oh, and also that you and I grew up in a world that was so hyper competitive, and that competition that creates so many patterns and so many narratives in our head that, oh, we have to compete. Oh, you can have work-life balance, but Susie and Jeremy and Bob over there, they're working longer hours than you, so you can have that work-life balance if you want it. Go ahead and take off your parental leave, but just know that those other folks they're putting in the hours, and then you witness and you see that the boomer in charge has promoted the Xer who destroyed their family life and got divorced and from their child, and yet they were rewarded by partnership in a consultancy or something like that. And that in many ways, I think still in a lot of our generation is it's still this ideal that I gotta beat that person so I can get more of mine, so I can live in the house, I can have the car, I can da 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 da, and then we have our children who grow up in an educational environment that is so different, and that there's been a lot of criticism about, oh, they just get participation trophies. There's no first place, there's no second place, there's no third place, anything like that they have no work ethic, right? But I think that is again an example of that that privilege and that blindness to say, well, yeah, they don't have that competitive drive and desire, but what I think I would like to know if this is what you're seeing is that absent that competitive drive and that I'm going to beat you, that instead I'm going to be with you and we're going to celebrate together, and that we're going to I enjoyed being in this event. I enjoyed playing, and yeah, we kept score, but it wasn't about me versus you. It was about, yay, we enjoyed that, and then we come together in fellowship and friendship. And I think that's a hopeful, positive pattern that the millennials and Zeds and alphas, betas, gammas, deltas will likely have that is more inside us. So I think that's a strength too, and I like that. You kind of you put that music there that I that I wanted to riff on, and my headphones are going to die in a moment, so take the collaboration riff if you want, or something else, and go with that if you don't mind. I'm going to be back in a second.
Okay.
You get the stage all by yourself. So what do you want to talk about?
Wow. First of all, let me say hi to a few friends that I've seen commenting. I cannot see who else is connected, and for sure I cannot know who will check out the recording. So hi everyone. If there's anything you would like to ask, please do. I keep an eye on the chat. I cannot see the LinkedIn chat, unfortunately, but I can see the YouTube chat. Well, Ryan finds the new headphones. I hope you can still hear me. I really hope. I'd like to talk about what you just mentioned about newer generation being less competitive. I think they are, in a way, but it's not because oh, there he is. Hi, welcome back. I was talking about competitiveness. I asked two people if they want me to, or us to talk about anything. No one has replied yet. And I wanted to go back to what you were discussing. You were saying that, younger generations, they are less competitive. That's what I'm also seeing. There's more collaboration. There's less a desire to win by crushing you. we can win together, we can help together, and it's magical to see like the support that the couple of groups of young people I have the privilege to work with, the support they have for each other is amazing. It's what you could find between brother and sister, or sisters or brothers, doesn't matter, the combo. I don't think, though, that they had an easy life, meaning they have all the time to compete. The life I remember during my high school was very simple. I got back from school, I got a chance to choose the sport that I wanted, and all the rest of the time was free. Now we ask them to be perfect. They start, and they voice that to me, like they have the pressure of being perfect, given by social media, of course, which is always the demon and evil, but also by their parents. When you look at the schedule of a 10 years old, and they have to do, they usually play one instrument, they do one or two sports, they study at least one language, they need to be exceptional at school, they need to be nice with the family and appear in social gatherings, and then they need to have some other hobby because, how can you not have a hobby? And they see the examples in front of them of peers who are successful when they are 18, 15, sometimes you're a kid, and they feel the pressure that they need to be all enfant prodige. But in the word prodige, there is the definition, you need to be an exception, one in a million, one in a billion. And they feel a failure if they don't get there by the end, they reach a normal working age. So there's a lot of pressure to compete, sadly, against themselves, which should be healthy, but they're not put in a position to live it in a healthy way most of the time.
And again, I give you a lot of grace there. I mean, you're observing. This is an observation that you have of these folks. It's not a stereotype, I think. And
it's my it's anecdotal experience, I would say. Yeah, it's what I'm noticing with the people I have a chance to interact with.
And that also has, so these are the sense of perfection, sense of I'm not enough because this person, they're chiming and they're crowing about what they've done on social media, and that I got into this school, that school, the other school, and I'm valedictorian of my class and blah 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 blah, and I'm so great, and this is what I present on Instagram. When Snapchat was big and whatever, this is my Twitch stream. I'm saying I'm so awesome. But in the background, they have this deep pain and this idea that maybe, again, this is conjecture on my part, but and a little bit of reading, a study, but that there's this sense of a lack of worth, a lack of self-worth that's there that spurs that behavior. And that's interesting that how does that evidence in the workplace, how does that lack of self-worth evidence in the workplace, and what, as a gray hair or whatever, what advice would you give to a Z Zoomer Zen that you think might be having that kind of challenge? How would you hold space for them and inspire them to be more vulnerable and accept themselves?
I hope you don't mind. I don't think they need to be even more vulnerable. Again, based on my experience with the few people around, I have found incredible human beings who are very open about their vulnerability. If anything, I would like sometimes to go and talk to people our age and give them a big shake, gentle, so it's, they don't get hurt. It's a big shake and say, imagine that your children went to work hearing their manager, someone they're looking up to and who has their life in their hands, calling them snowflakes, calling them weak. How do you think they would feel? How do you think their soul could feel at that point? Now imagine that there's a new hire. That new hire is someone else's son or daughter. How would you like your son or daughter to be treated? What messages would you like them to hear? How would you like them to support them? Which is not, I'm going to sit close to you when you do math exercises and I'm going to do them for you. But it's what kind of encouragement, what kind of environment would you like them to find? Why are you behaving if young people are behaving in a certain way, it's because of the way they've been brought up. If you brought them up to be overprotected at home, why are you acting in the workplace in a very aggressive way, in the same way that killed your soul when you went up the ladder?
Oof.
I think it starts from us, not from them.
Now who's having the breakthrough? It's not you, it's me. And thank you for that that challenge. What you reminded me of something, and I think this is a theme that we've kind of come there through today, is not being a transmission person. As someone who has experience and skill, but to be a transition person, right? So to not transmit your own stuff, not to shove your own stuff there. Are you okay? Yeah. Are the police coming to get you?
Oh, could you hear that? I'm so sorry.
Oh no, that's okay. So
that was very feeble for me. And also, sorry, while we got interrupted, I got distracted a moment because there's a comment in the chat that resonated a lot with me. But you are also having a breakthrough. So help me, please, because I need to borrow your metaphor, like a squirrel. I got attracted by the new shiny thing, and I'm running around the new shiny thing. Help me keeping both tracks of both threads, please. Where would you like to go, Mr. Host?
I think what the idea that I want to go with it, that I'm hearing that where do you want to go, host? What I noticed when you said that, I noticed that we're seeing the comment here, and I put it up there by Marilia, and I wish you were on YouTube, Marilia. I'd have commented back, but still, okay. Yeah. So this, how would I have felt if I heard this in my 20s? Did you ever have, in your experience, was there ever a manager or some kind of supervisor that gave you that kind of harsh feedback? That kind of, oh, you got to do this just because. And if you did, how did you respond to that?
I've always been a high achiever. I felt I had to claim victories to make my parents proud. And I got them. Like, I honestly got them I've always tried not to stomp on other people to obtain what I needed. But I developed a character that makes me just go there and take it. Ask for permission, be kind, check if does anyone else wants it, but if no one wants it, go, or at least voice what your needs are. So somehow there was, and the few times where some managers try to insinuate that I was not doing enough, I crushed them back. The last time that it happened, I left corporate world and I started my own company. So I'm done. Bye.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting for me in Marilla's comment is that I don't have children. So in a way, I feel uncomfortable. I feel this is probably my breakthrough. I need to, but I don't have the breakthrough. I have an area The breakthrough is there's something for me to reflect on. I don't feel entirely comfortable talking about other people's children, because someone may say, well, it's easy for you to say, then you go back home and you're not responsible for anyone. Also, if you love so much young people, why comes that you don't have children? And it's not like I couldn't, I decided not to.
Mm.
So honestly, I'm probably talking to people that I can't fully understand. And so thank you, Marilia, for pointing that out. I should probably change metaphor because, yeah, I don't know what I'm talking about. You're right. Honestly, I admit it openly. But I can imagine myself as a teenager or as a 20-something years old. I didn't know where to go. I didn't. My parents supported me in every possible way, but I didn't know what to suggest. I had to choose my own school when I wanted to study music. I was 6 or 8. I don't remember now. Around that age, I had to find out myself where the school was. So for me, having the figure of a mentor has always been something that I strive for, and that has helped me massively when I found one. And I feel that all the years where I haven't found one, those have been years that I've lost. Just lurking, trying to find an answer, where someone who could have helped me growing, they don't need to be my parents. Actually, I prefer to have someone who I admire for other reasons in other fields. That's probably the type of person I'm trying to be now.
And I think that also gets back to the topic today. Is what has come to be, and many people would criticize it, is that professional coaching skill of being empathic in a way. And I think you've, and again, from the very beginning of our friendship, that you're always empathic and curious about me, and made me feel good in your presence. And I think even if you don't have children, I think that's and certain many folks who haven't had that experience will it won't resonate with them. And sure, we need to find, as coaches and guides, need to find other metaphors that will reach those who have chosen not to have children. But developing the skill of empathy, and it is a skill. I mean, there's maybe you have a natural proclivity to it, but developing that skill is an important one. I think that in this practice of helping software development teams do what they need to do, and especially now that the Scrum Master role is no longer valued or has become co-opted, and the Agile coaches are getting fired. Even still, I think it is critical to develop that skill, that skill of empathy, and I think Marilia is also bringing that in here too, because that is a skill. It is an Agile coaching skill. The Agile coaches that do exist, who have possibly come from some other coaching method that is, whatever is not XP, is not Kanban or whatever. Blah, who cares? Is about what is the skill of being human? What's the skill of being together? And maybe that doesn't happen now in the software development space. Maybe that's being in a different area of an organization and being that force for an empathy architect, or some kind of an alchemist, an empathy alchemist. That's
I love that. There you go. Thank you. I got my gift of the day.
Yay! So there's we're close to. I don't have a hard stop, but maybe some of the folks out there do. Anye, I think Anye is. I don't know how to pronounce the name. You can put it in LinkedIn. I'll pronounce it correctly here, maybe. But this, I saw a comment in there that seemed interesting to go into. Ooh. Wow. Oh, to wish to impose suffering on another person. Oh my gosh, that doesn't compute. That is an anti-pattern. That's an anti-pattern if ever there was one. I would think. Wow.
I'd say definitely. At the same time, I see it as a not surprising. I was going to say a normal, no, a natural, yes, a not surprising thing. We do that all the time. It's again, I'm not a father, but just possibly that helps me looking at things from a different perspective and being less involved. We tend to be the reflection of either our parents or the shadow. To the point that it's quite typical in movies, hearing the line, "Oh, I turned into my father. I turned into my mother." It's stereotypical. And so we do that all the time as human beings. There's no reason why we wouldn't do it in the workplace. I don't have stats, but allow me to say that with love in my heart, I like to think that 5% of the people, less 2% of the people who have suffered some form of abuse, because this is abuse in a way, decide to perpetrate it for revenge. Because they are so broken inside that they perpetrate evil. But the vast majority of people probably saw the benefit of it. And what they're trying to do is to replicate the only model they've learned that, despite everything, allow them to be the person that they are. And so they're just mimicking what they've seen.
And this brings me into another a beautiful phrase, I think, that you're embodying here. And you've talked about love, and I love that you talked about love, because I think that's sorely needed in the workplace, and it is important to be able to speak that love, and not in a way that's dangerous, because we're talking about loving one another in this spirit of art. And the quote that came to mind, someone attributed it to Meg Wheatley. Someone attributed it so I attributed it to Tennyson Wolf, who I had here on the show a while back. Was that how can you hate someone whose story you know, right? And that goes both ways, I think. What you're talking about, I mean, you're saying, so this person who's giving grief to the kids, they've got a story. They have a story of abuse and trauma, and that's driving that. And they're being a transmission person, right? They're transmitting that as a result of that. But there's a reason. And that, again, as someone who's studied the professional coaching domain, or who's been in Agile, who has that empathy, it takes some strength to be able to show grace to that grief giver. I mean, even I was like, oh God, taking revenge is that what? Hang on a second. What is that person's story? And no, that's not acceptable behavior, and that does need to be faced, and it's important to be faced. But to go into that conflict with a sense of curiosity, right? And this is another. I'll bring in a tool in here that I love to use. Is this clean language tool? I think you're probably familiar with clean, and that's not bringing your own stuff into their story. And that's going in with curiosity, and going in with curiosity and grace to either of those folks who are in conflict with one another. I think that's super important, and that's a skill I think could be. I believe it's valuable. I think it's valuable to show that. Is there anything that you wanted to bring here today that you did not get a chance to?
I came without a clear idea. As I told you behind the scenes, I saw the topics, the talking points you suggested in the invite, and said, I don't know whether I'm going to be able to talk about those.
We did. I think we did. I think we did a good job there.
Hopefully, yes. Hopefully, yes.
So I like to end this. I've come with a few different ways of doing this at the end, and I started with dangerous conversation. What's a dangerous conversation you want to have? Because that's a thing. This idea of psychological safety and social safety. I love that you said that, social safety. And that what is it that we're creating to be safe from danger? And what kind of danger is that danger? And I thought the other day that a new way to go into that is a dangerous invitation. And that in that way, meaning, who would you invite into a conversation that might present danger? And what would be the question you would ask with that invitation?
Just to be clear, are you asking me who is the person that I would like to have the dangerous conversation with? And what question would I ask them?
Who would you invite to the dangerous conversation? And what would you ask?
If I were to have a dangerous conversation with someone, I would like to invite in the conversation the dearest person that each of us have to be there as a witness of what we say. Because I think the most important thing that can, and I want to be aware of that, because that can help me and hopefully help them behaving and talking in a way that doesn't leave to regret. What question would I ask? Probably at the beginning, how can we have this conversation in a way that tomorrow morning you can wake up and not feel ashamed?
Wow. That's a shameless conversation. I love that.
Literally, shameless.
Yeah, it's a shameless conversation. Thank you, Frankie. Thank you so much. And I'll meet you in the penalty box on the other side. Anything you wish to say to those who will witness you in this moment, whenever and wherever they are? Any parting words?
I would say thank you for the gift of your time. That's always incredibly important. If you feel so generous to gift me with a little bit more of your time, let me know how I can help you making a step forward in supporting the young in your life. I will be honored. Thank you. And thank you, Ryan.
You're quite welcome. And I didn't even ask the usual thing. How can people find you? Where can they find you? How would you like them to find you?
LinkedIn. I'm shamefully, not shamelessly, shamefully, almost always connected. That's the easiest way.
All right. Well, I'll put that in the notes, and I'll see you on the other side. Thank you. I took myself away, so all right. So I'm not going to take you away. So I'm not so much of an expert here, so I'll see you on the other side. Wow, I love Frankie, and I'm so happy to have had him here, and I'm happy to have had you here. Dan, Anye, I think Anye, you didn't correct me, Maria, and all of you who happen to be viewing this whenever and wherever you are, thank you for the precious gift of your time and attention. And be prepared to be surprised and be more purple.